You see this?
It's all good.
There it is. Good
Ooh,
afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody's looking good, feeling good, smelling good. You know all the goods. So you know
all
you
the
see in my
goods.
face, all the goods, every single one of
All the
them.
goods.
It is 2 o'clock on Sunday, and I hope everybody's
One
having an
o'clock my
absolutely
time.
brilliant 1 o'clock. I always forget that. You're like, but what about me though? I thought we was inclusive. That's my
Oh, we
bad.
in
My
this
bad.
together.
Yeah, my bad, sis. What's up, Sean? How you doing
What's
today?
going on? Thank you for
Chilling.
having me. I'm
Always.
ex-
You are the favorite of all of my guests. I do believe. We made this a thing. So we decided the first Sunday of every month, Sean is gonna be the one that you're gonna see with me on a Sunday. So she's a staple, y'all. I know
I'm a
y'all happy about it.
staple.
So let
Teach
me
this to
share
me.
this. Yep. I'm gonna copy it
Yeah,
and send it to you
yeah,
in
send it.
Messenger, maybe.
Well, it
Let's
eventually
see.
pops up on one of. It comes to the
I just
Facebook. You
shared
see
it
how
on my
slow.
page. You might be able to see it there. So as everybody jumps on, if you could please share this to all the groups, any group that you're associated with, that it doesn't go against their rules and regulations, of course. Share this out so everybody can see us up here chilling and having these creative conversations where I believe that we really can heal the world one creative conversation at a time. So I am Carrie. I'm the CEO and founder of ATBA Impact Group, where we just really try to push the capacity of change, positive change, by consistently planting positive seeds. So we hope that, this conversation today will be one of those conversations that really plant a lot of positive seeds and curiosity seeds, because one of the things that I believe hinders us from really changing in the ways that will benefit us the most is we don't want to be creative with what we do and how we change. We don't want to try new things because we think because what so and so did worked and what this did and worked for your mom and dad in there. You don't want to try something new for you and really create your own individual path. And I think that change is one of the things that influences relationships a lot. And relationships is the topic today. So today, when we were talking about what we're going to be, and again, before we start, share this, like this, put it in every group that you can find, because I'm going to try to really just stay focused on this conversation today, because it's going to be a doozy. If I do not get to your comments, I will circle back afterwards. What's up, Angel? What's up, Stacy, sis? How y'all doing today? I see a lot more eyes in the building, but so say hello as you pop on. We will acknowledge as many people as we can. But like I said, this is going to be a good conversation today, y'all. And I want to hear what y'all got to say about everything, because neither one of us have planned anything. Neither one of us has scripted anything. We only have the topic that we gave you, which
That's it.
is, that's it. That's all we got, y'all, which is, I put the quote I took it straight from Messenger, and I put it in the comments of the description of what this conversation is going to be about today. And I asked her, well, what do you want to talk about today? And she was like, relationships. And I was like, ooh, just because, there's things going on in my own. So she was like, well, you ain't got to do that. I'm like, no, 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 no. I said, I have got to embrace my path. I have got to stop acting like the things that are in my life, the things that are happening in my life are not happening, because how am I going to embrace the change if I ignore the shift? I
Exactly.
can't. I can't clearly see all of the paths that are available for me if I don't acknowledge the path that I'm on. So we decided to go ahead and go forward with this conversation today about relationships. It may be very sensitive for me. It may be a little touch and go for me. I might have to ease out of the frame. I don't know, y'all. I don't know. But what's up, Shakita? I ain't seen you in a hot minute. What's up, Keisha? But we are going to be honest today. We're going to be completely open today. And we would love it in the comment boxes if y'all do the same. If you have any questions, you want us to expound upon anything you hear us say, or you have a different theory than what we're saying and you disagree, we want to know that too, because that is what true conversation is about. So, first and foremost, how is your day, Sean?
Oh, it's going well. It's going well. I've been looking forward to this. I'm excited.
Uh-huh. It's
I'm
gonna be a
excited.
good one. It's
This
gonna
is
be
going to
good.
be a
And
good
just
one.
tell everybody just a little bit about who you are, and then we'll rock right on into this thing.
All right. I am LaShawn Fleming Bruce. I go by Sean Speaks on my social media platforms for the most part. And I have a website called the freeyourthinkingmind.com. It's a blog. And it's basically where my whole purpose is really to just promote self-belief, right? That's my mission, is to help you see with your own eyes, hear with your own ears, act aligned with your own heart so that you can live the life of your greatest dreams. And basically everything I do, everything I uh, any discussion that you have with me, whether it's business or whether it's personal, is always is going to be about aligning with yourself and the life that you want to have. And so
Yes,
that's kind of what that's what I'm all about. That's what I
yes.
promote in pretty much every arena.
Nice.
So I'm just
That's hey,
glad to be here.
hey, I'm so glad you're here. When you and I met, I still really just can't pinpoint what happened because immediately there was just conversation. Every time we talk, we have, even if it's like, how's your day? We'll talk about, you know, something positive about, like, even if it's something that's going kind of wavy, the other one gives the other one something to take with them. It's never an empty conversation. And I
Yeah.
love that about you. I absolutely
Oh,
love that. And
thank you.
meeting more and more people like that, which lets me know that I'm on the right track. I'm on the
Well, that's
right
because
track.
that's what you give out, right? I
Yeah,
think that what
have
happens over
to.
time is that you start to build up a reserve of what
Mm-hmm.
it is you want to receive when you're
Mm-hmm.
giving it out, right? So the more you're giving out what it is that you want to, you will start receiving
You
it
start getting it.
without having to necessarily look for it, right?
Right,
Or to beg for it. You can look for it because if
right,
you're giving it out, it's fine. You have there's no problem in having an intent to receive what you're giving out.
right,
But I think that
right.
when you start to just be who you want to be, you build up a
Uh-huh.
reserve, and that's just what's
Yeah,
attracted to you.
I completely agree. I've thrown enough rocks in that thing to cause the vibration so strong that I just get back what in
Just get
turn I threw in.
exactly.
Absolutely. I
Well, that's
love it.
if you really think about it, that's all we are. We're just
Yep.
energy beings, right? So
Yes.
it's all about vibrating on
Mm-hmm.
the level or on the wavelength. Let's say it that way. On the
Okay.
wavelength that you actually want to vibrate on to bring
Right.
into your magnetic field or to bring into your life what it
Yes.
is that you want to bring in, right? Because I know some people,
Yes.
don't like to use the whole magnetic field language, or
Uh-huh.
you can say bring into your life, bring into your
Mm-hmm.
spirit, right? You can utilize whatever word makes you feel comfortable. At the end of the day, you
Right.
want to have a life experience now that's
Mm-hmm.
in alignment with what you want to have in your life, that's going to make you put a
Yes.
smile on your face, that's going to
Uh-huh.
make you walk around smiling, right, at all
Exactly right.
times, right? And so that's kind of
Yes.
what it is. And I think that what happens is you have to realize that if you're wanting to bring that into your space, you have to show up in that space bringing that,
Yep.
right? And the more
Yep.
you start to do that, the more you
Mm-hmm.
then align and connect, attract, vibrate with whatever you want to word you want to use with other
Mm-hmm.
people, right?
Yeah.
That's on
Like
that same
attracts like.
wavelength.
Yeah,
Like
like
attracts like,
attracts like. It
like
really
attracts
does.
like.
We are all walking magnets and we are polarized to whatever we decide.
Exactly, which is what
Yep.
that's a great segue into the question, right? One of the things that I have been, just grappling with and, over the years was this thing about relationships being hard.
Okay.
And I'm gonna be honest, I never really thought about it years and years ago, right? I thought it was by default. You hear relationships are
Okay.
hard, marriages are hard.
Right.
Mama said it, daddy said it, cousins said it, friends, everybody
They
said, right?
said it.
You can't
They
watch a news show without they telling you how hard relationships are.
right.
And not that long ago, a couple of years ago maybe, for sure, at least a year and a half, 2 years ago, I started asking the question, why
Why?
was relationships hard? And I
Right.
started asking, did it have to be, do relationships have to be hard, or have we just habituated the hardness of relationships,
Spoken that
right?
into existence because everybody collectively agree about it.
Because everybody collectively agree about it. Because this is my thing. If I'm showing up in a sincerity in relationship with someone,
Mm-hmm.
then how, and it's not hard for me, then why is it hard for the relationship? So then that means that either I'm not sincere in how I'm showing up, the
Mm-hmm.
other person is not sincere in how they're showing up, or we're putting a unnecessary, unreasonable obligation on the relationship, right?
Mm.
And I do
Right.
have a theory. I always know,
Okay.
Sean Speaks
Come on
always
through with the
have a
theories. I
theory,
like theories now.
right? My theory is, right, I have this thing that I call the mixology of relationships, or this mixology of love. And I think that one of the things that we need to question. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm not even gonna go to
Okay.
anybody, right? But this is something to question.
I ain't going there with y'all
I'm
today.
not going there with you, but just want you to think about it, right? I want you
Okay.
to
Okay.
chew on it, right? Chew
Mm-hmm.
on this shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. My theory is that part of why I think relationships become hard, right? And marriages eventually, when you go from relationships to marriage, become hard, is because we have this base mix that we bring to the relationship of permanence. And
Okay.
relationships, I think that when you bring the idea of permanence to a relationship that's impermanent, then somebody in the relationship or both parties begin to feel like they can't show up authentically. They
Okay.
have to now turn on something or turn down something to try to give you permanence when they may no longer want to give you permanence. But they
Right.
have to pretend,
Okay.
right? And so and as
Yeah.
they're pre and as they're pretending, the relationship is going on. But think about it. We are sentient beings. We feel, we sense, right? So if you're not showing up really wanting to be, I'm gonna feel it. I may not feel it day one. I
Right.
may not even feel it day 10. But
Right.
eventually I'm gonna feel the vibrational disconnect,
Right.
right?
Uh-huh.
But because I have this idea that it's supposed to be permanent,
Right.
now I'm trying to make the relationship last. And this is
Right.
where I think the trigger of the habit of hardness come in, right?
Wow.
Because now I
Mm-hmm.
got to make the relationship work because I have to meet this permanence obligation, right? And
Uh-huh.
this is why we work to make relationships work, which is why we characterize
Right.
relationships as being hard,
Gotcha.
right? But
Gotcha.
if
Gotcha.
relationships are hard, then the relationships are not fun,
Right.
right? And so I think
Right.
we sort of grew this whole breed of relationships that are no longer fun. And I
Right.
want to take us to a place where we're having fun relationships, right?
Right.
Just have if you're married, you should have a fun marriage. If you're in a relationship, you should have a fun relationships. And I tell people, not all relationships should lead to marriage,
Right.
right?
Whoa.
And not all
Yeah.
marriages should last,
Right. Right.
right? Not
Right.
if not if both parties don't want it. I tell people all the
Right.
time, think about the concept of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
The concept of marriage is that you're going to promise me today forever instead of saying I'm just going to promise you today,
Right.
right? Because the reality of it is that's all you actually do is you promise me today, and we try to work out every day to stay together. And then one day, guess what happens? Sometimes it just don't work out, right? Well, why do I need to self-deceive myself and pretend that I'm going to get forever? Why don't I just be joyful with the fact that I got today? And today I'm all in. Like we're
Right.
both all in, right? And if
Right.
5 years from now you're no longer all in with me,
Mm-hmm.
just let me know.
Right.
Just let me
Right.
know, right? Because at
Right.
that point, there's no more fun if I got to force you to stay. But see, because
Right.
we think relationships are hard, we have no problem forcing what doesn't work,
Yeah.
right?
And what that brings to mind for me is that just because you stay doesn't mean it wasn't time for you to go.
Say that again, because that's crucial.
Just because you stay, it doesn't change the fact that it's still time for you to go.
Exactly. See, why is it? And this is a question I started to ask myself after doing a great number of divorces. I started saying, okay, why is it that everybody needs to stay in a relationship when they get to the point that they no longer know who they are in the relationship?
Come
When
on.
they get to that point where they say, I just lost myself. I just needed to find me again. I just I just
Mhm.
needed to find me. I got lost in the relationship. It was just I was no longer showing up, right? Why does the
Right,
relationship have to take you there? It
right.
takes you there, right? Because you're not dealing with the reality of your actual situation because you're trying to do what? Most people are trying to force permanence in an
Come on.
impermanent situation. They're trying
Woo!
to force love where the love has either run out or was never there, right? Because
Uh-huh.
just because you have connection with someone doesn't mean that it's the type of love that you want, and it doesn't mean that it's permanent. You can have a great connection, but it's a great connection for a period of time. When that period of
Right.
time ends, you have got to learn how to roll with it, right? And
Uh-huh.
enjoy the ride, right? I think Abraham Hicks says, go learn how to go downstream,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Learn how to go downstream. Stop. But we're so used to resisting ourselves. We're
Everybody won't be
comfortable.
a salmon.
What? Say it again.
Everybody want to be a salmon. Why?
Everybody.
Just
Why?
don't you we some people, a lot of us swim upstream because we can, not because we should.
And
Just
not even
because we
because we want
can.
to. And not even
Hmm.
because we want
And
to.
we take on this whole humility thing as if it's supposed to include pain, as if compromise is supposed to include pain. And that's one of the things I wrote down to you. I want you to speak on um, when you're talking about when we have to step it up a notch because we're
Hmm.
trying to match who we're with. We have to water down who we are because we don't want to tower over who we're with, or we have to turn something off because it doesn't align with who we're with at all. Where do you draw the line between up, down, and off and compromise in relationships?
Because I don't. Okay, that is something. This is gonna sound really extreme, right?
Hit them, hit it,
But
hit them with it.
compromise for what? What are we compromising? Right?
Mhm.
See, this is the thing because see now if now you're gonna say, well, Sean, you're being unrealistic. You have to compromise. Okay, you gotta compromise. But really, remember, y'all, that's just a term given to us in a definition that fits
Whew.
perfectly with hardness of relationships,
Right,
right?
right, right.
Right? The compromise comes from the fact that you think you get to force somebody else not to be who they are.
Right.
And you want them to compromise them being them to please you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want them
Right,
to please you, and in actuality, you don't even know what really pleases you,
right,
right? So
right.
and I'm not saying that two people don't make agreements. That's not what I'm saying, right? But
Mhm.
when we use the term compromise, it's generally I would sub that compromise. What we really when we say compromise, what we're actually saying most time is you're supposed to want to do this. I call it the supposed to want to be. You're supposed to want to be. You're my husband. You're supposed to want to take out the trash. You're supposed to want to take me out to dinner. You're supposed to want to spend time with me. You're supposed to want to do these things, right?
Right, right.
And then we'll say, but we don't realize that we're saying they're supposed to want to. We're saying we're compromise. You're supposed to compromise, and we're supposed to have share all of our money, right? You're supposed to want to
Yeah,
share all your money with me, right?
right,
But
right.
if he or she doesn't want to share all the money with you,
Mhm.
right? Is it do
Which
you
is
really
just
want,
another learned behavior.
which is just another learned behavior. And I'm not
Yep.
saying I'm not against people sharing money for
Right,
somebody to go
right,
spend.
exactly. But
I'm
it
against that.
is.
But it's the
But
truth.
yeah, and you should be able to choose those type of intricacies in your marriage relationship on a relationship basis and not just you and that person, but where you and that person happen to be right now versus where you and that person happen to be next year
You
or
you
where you and that
decided
person
based
is 5 years.
upon you
Right,
decided based upon the relationship, not on the
right,
labels.
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
See, a
And
lot of
what I
times people
hear,
think, I'm
no, go
sorry,
ahead,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
go.
No, go ahead, girl.
No, no, what I was saying is that a lot of times what happens is we have these obligations that come with the label. So it's like once you go from the
Right.
relationship to marriage, now you show up with a whole lot of supposed to want tos based upon the label of I'm your wife, you're my husband,
Right.
right? And then when that person doesn't match what you have self-deceived in your mind to think that a husband is supposed to be or wife is supposed to be, and then guess what's going to happen? That person is going to disappoint you,
Right.
right? And then that's where
Right.
the compromise comes in at, right?
Yes. Yes. Angel put on here, are compromise and mutual agreement different things. Like you come to an agreement, but it's not initially what either wanted in the beginning. I want to touch on this just because I wrote something down just about that very thing when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to that compromise, because it's like you were speaking about that permanence earlier. And it is that permanence that we add to compromise. No one said compromise had to be permanent. And the reason why compromise, I feel like in
Mm.
my head, and I can only speak for mine, has such a negative connotation is because compromise to me means that I have to give up something in order to please you so that it doesn't cause an effect that I don't want to deal with. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
I'm picking the lesser of the two evils because it's easier for me to down or change something about myself, which is what you should focus on, but not because it's just going to make you hurt less in a different area. So
Ooh.
what when you use that word agreement, I love that because an agreement means we're at a different point, which means things have got to be rearranged. So because of what your needs are and what my needs are and where we are right now, we need to have a conversation and decide what works best for us now versus the way things worked for us then, and completely do away with compromise altogether. Just make sure that we're
Exactly.
constantly having conversations about what's really going on right now.
What we have to start to do more of in our relationships is have more board meetings with ourselves,
Come on.
right? Have more meetings of the mind, right? And if it's and understanding, you said a phrase at the very beginning, understanding when it's time to shift, or I like to say pivot, right?
Right.
Every relationship, whether it's a year relationship, 5 years relationship, 10 years or 20 years, right? A lot of times we end up losing the relationship either to breakups or marriages to divorce because when it was time to shift or when it was time to pivot,
Yeah.
you were either or both parties were so committed to trying to be what wasn't real that they
Right.
were not dealing with the reality of their relationship, right?
Right.
If their relationship needed a change or an adjustment, they were not making that change or adjustment in real time,
Right.
right?
Right.
By the time they was
Oh,
willing to
girl.
by the
You.
time you yeah, by the time they was you're willing to actually start to see what the other person was telling you, it's too late, right?
Yeah.
Or by the time you're actually starting to really understand what you were feeling,
Mm-hmm.
you don't even care if the other person
Mm-hmm.
doesn't
Yeah.
get it, right?
And we
Because
all do it because it's
we
like
all do it.
they can do, like if today, for instance, you leave out the bread, and I done told you for the thousandth time to close up that bread, but I don't say nothing. But tomorrow I trip over your shoe, and then the next day you didn't flush the toilet, and then all of a sudden you walk in and you just say hey, and I take it the wrong way, and that's what I blow up about. And now we're all confused about what's going on because we didn't deal with the things that happened in the
in real
moment. And
in real
that's
time.
simple stuff, but bigger things happen like that that also causes that same effect. And Shakita says is what if the person is in love and the other one is not, but act like the whole time they were, and years down the road they say that it's not, they're not in love with them and they haven't been the whole time. What would you
Let
say
me
to that?
let me you know I'm a
I'll leave that up there.
this is yeah, leave that up. Shakiva, let me tell you, it is an unfortunate situation. But to be honest with you, I haven't done the statistics, so I don't know, but I would say it's a great percentage. If I was a guessing person, I would say of the 50% of people that stay married, 25% are not in love the whole time, or not in love half of the whole time that they're together. And the unfortunate, I think the reason why they're not is because they have an idea of permanence, of a commitment to the commitment, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so I don't think that people mean the other person ill by being with them and not being in love with them.
Right.
Everybody has relationships and marriages for different reasons.
Right.
The issue comes is that a lot of times we're not patient with ourselves and what it is that we actually want enough to actually connect with somebody that vibes with us on that level or that on
Right.
that wavelength, right? So we end up getting what really doesn't satisfy us, but because they were willing to do all of the things, they were willing to call you boyfriend or girlfriend, they were willing
Right.
to get
Right.
engaged. They were willing to
Right.
get married. They were willing to
Right.
get married in the church or get married in a
Play the
civil
role.
ceremony. They were willing to play a role, right? And what
Right.
happens is you can play a role for a long period of time. Some people play
Oh
roles.
yeah.
I've had people get divorced after 10, 15, 20, 30 years of playing a role,
Have
right?
mercy.
But never actually being in love or being happy. Now, that's not to say that every marriage needs love.
Right.
I guarantee you there are people out there right now that's got great marriages,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not in love, not in
Yeah.
the traditional what we think of as in
Right.
love,
Right. Right.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think what you have to learn how to do is be true to you, right? True to your feelings. If you're with
Yep.
someone and you know you don't feel in love or you
Mm-hmm.
don't feel love back,
Mm-hmm.
be honest with yourself. Start
Right.
with an honesty with yourself. Stop trying to look in the mirror. He loves me. He loves me. No, he doesn't. He don't love you, and it's okay. Just accept that he doesn't love. Not at least not in the way you want to be loved.
Right. Right. Right.
Start there. Now that doesn't mean you gotta go get no. Don't go get no divorce. Don't go breaking up no relationship.
Right.
Right? Because
Right.
Sean speak. I'm not saying don't go be stupid.
They coming
Right?
for you.
Don't go do that, right? But strength starts with being truthful to yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And stop self-deceiving yourself. So when you start to just say, okay, you know what, this relationship doesn't satisfy X, Y, and Z,
Mm-hmm.
right? But what does this relationship satisfy? It satisfies A, B, C, and D.
Mm-hmm.
And what are my greatest needs right now? My greatest needs are A, B, C, and D,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So now you have to reevaluate that relationship in a new light,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because as
Right.
far as what it is that you need, that relationship actually satisfies.
Right.
See, a lot of times people get frustrated about their relationships only because they are in comparison.
Right.
They are looking out at other people's relationship and they're saying, well, he takes her to dinner every weekend and he does this and she does that and this
Yes,
and that. Okay,
Lord
but
Jesus.
but
It's
right?
the
But that's
truth.
but it's the truth. But that's out there, right? What you've got to think about is, okay, what is it? What is it that you really need? If you got a
Right.
2-year old at home, right, and you know that maybe you're not one that's financially savvy, and he is, and you
Right.
want let's say you want your children to have a certain whatever, you may
Right.
that may be your greater need
Right.
right then. Now that doesn't mean
Right.
that's gonna always be your greater need,
Right.
right? And so that's the reason why I always tell people you don't have to always end a relationship. You just need to actually start to view the relationship through clear glasses. You may very
Honestness.
well
Yeah.
want to be in that relationship, and he may very well want to be in that relationship, but it may not be for the reasons that Sally and John are in a relationship,
Right.
right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
so, and I think if you start to do it, I'm telling you, I have a theory. If you start to do it that way, I think relationships will last,
Mm-hmm.
marriages will last. And the reason why marriages will last is because, first of all, people will jump in to go and get married. Because,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, I always tell people, I always ask this question: why do you need a marriage to have me stay with you forever? If I'm going to stay with you forever, marriage is not going to make me stay with you forever. My
Mhm.
connection to you is going to
Right.
make me stay with you forever. And
Right.
marriage can't give me that. The
Right.
label in and of itself cannot make me stay where I don't want to be, and
Right.
vice versa. Cannot make him stay where
Mhm.
he doesn't want to be or whatever.
Right.
You have to want to be
Mhm.
there. You have to desire to be there.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so true. They blowing it up in the comments. They're like, man,
Tell
yeah.
them, give them what they saying.
Sometimes you need a fish, but all you have is snakes to give.
that was
Oh my God, that's so funny.
that's
And that's the truth.
but
I
it's
mean, and
true.
not only that, but that may be all they have to give.
That may be
You
all
know.
they have to give. Let me tell you that. I'll tell you a
Mhm.
story. Okay, so
Mhm.
this is what. Okay, so sometimes I have,
Story
and I
time.
went, yeah, story time. I have like, let's say somebody will call me and they'll tell me they've been married for 10 years, right?
Uh-huh.
And they'll say that their husband or wife, I'm gonna use both, wife or husband, cheated on them. And I
Uh-huh.
said, of course, I have empathy. I'm like, oh, that is
Yeah.
that
Oh.
that's not good. Nobody wants to be cheated upon, right?
Right. Right. Right.
you know and then they'll say and I'll say, well, how long ago was that? And then they'll say, that was back in 2010. That's 2020 or 21
Right.
or whatever, right? So they cheated on you a long time ago. Okay. I said, well, did they stop? Did it end? It was like, well, I never did really catch him again, like right-handed, but I know he was at least 3 years ago. Okay. Well, how many times between 2010 and 2020 do you think he cheated on you? The whole time. Okay. So you really believe he cheated on you the whole entire time, but you stayed married, right? Which I see you shake. I got no problem with that. This is where I tell people. I said, okay, well, I said, so why do you want to get divorced now then? Well, I just don't. I just don't want. I don't want to share. I just don't want to share him. Okay, you don't want to share him. That's just not who I am. And so I'll ask a question. I say, okay, so you from 2010 to 2020, you
Right.
felt like he cheated on you the whole entire time. So you felt like you were being shared the whole entire time. So
Uh-huh.
is it that you don't want to be shared,
Right. Or is it
right?
something new happened?
Or is it something else, right? And so then let's just say the story in from 2010, she first caught him cheating. She didn't really catch him keep cheating again, but then a year ago or 6 months ago, she caught him cheating again, right? So is it the catching him? Is it actually now knowing that he's cheating is making
Hmm.
you want a divorce, right? But what about the feeling of him cheating,
Yeah.
right? And so I think and this is where I'm trying. If you start to connect with your
Hmm.
feeling tells you what to do, or your feeling tells you what the truth is, right? So now my
Yeah.
next question is, okay, then you don't actually really want a divorce, not for that reason.
Right.
Not for that reason. That's not the reason you want a divorce, right?
Right.
Because if that was the reason, you would have gotten a divorce when he first cheated. And maybe you'd have given
Right.
him a pass. You definitely got a divorce if 2 years later you still feel like when he leave out, he going to cheat, you'd have divorced him then, right?
Hmm.
And I
Right.
say, well, do you really, really want a divorce?
Hmm.
Well, I do, because I just can't be with a man that's cheating. You can't be with a man that's cheating. Why can't you be with a man? You was with him for 10 years and he was cheating.
Right.
So that can't be the truth
That
either.
ain't it.
That
Yeah.
ain't it.
What is it
What is it? Right? It's because she feels like people know
now?
that he's cheating.
Yeah.
Right? But in actuality, you had no problem with him cheating. Not really.
Hmm.
Right? And
Right.
why? Because he probably brought home the bacon. You fried it up in the pan. He paid the bills, or both, yeah, or you had a nice lifestyle,
It was a good setup.
whatever the setup was.
Yeah.
And guess what? If you are happy in your setup,
Hmm.
why should you be concerned about what Sean say?
Right.
Just be happy in your setup.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
learn to be happy in your setup.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
hard truth for
Or
people, but
change
it's
your
a
setup. Like, I
or
mean,
change or
and
change your
be
setup.
honest about it. Like, I want a divorce now because now not only do I feel like the fool, but I'm looking like the fool. And I don't want to look. I ain't about to be looking like nobody's fool. And that because it's the ego. Sometimes it's the ego because they'll hide it if it's hidden because of their ego won't be a bruise, because if they ask for a divorce, then they the one looking like the crazy because they ain't got no proof. But on the flip side, that once they know other people know, then they're like, oh, as if then they. I get it, I get it,
And this is
and
the
there's
thing.
so many
You're
different scenarios to it too. So I'm not
it's so
downplaying
so many.
anybody who is,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, I get it.
It's just being it's what's most important. Your feelings about
Hmm.
yourself, or
Hmm.
what you think other people feel about you.
Right.
And I think the truth is that for a lot of people, it's what other people feel about them,
Oh yeah, I agree.
right? Which is why you'll stay in a marriage that you're unhappy with, or you will leave a marriage that you're happy with. See, I think many people
Right.
get divorced that want to stay. And the only reason why they're leaving is because Sally done found out, and now that Sally done found out, they gotta go. Cause Sally
Now
gonna,
they gotta go.
they gotta go. I gotta go. Sally, yeah, what Sally?
Cause Sally gonna tell everybody.
Sally gonna tell everybody, right? I got us to get up out of here because Sally know,
It's a done
right?
deal now.
It's a
Sally done
done
messed
deal now,
everything up.
right? But all you really messed up is your own happiness, because
Yeah,
this is the thing. You have to define happiness for yourself,
yeah,
right?
absolutely,
Right? And happiness
absolutely.
looks differently for every person that's on this good earth.
Hmm.
Happiness looks different. And if you're going to
Hmm.
vibrate with somebody else, happiness is going to look different for you and that person,
Hmm.
as a relationship or in a couple. It's going to be different, right?
Yeah,
And so
it really is.
what it's going to be different. So what's got to be the guide is got to be how you feel.
Right.
And when that person no longer makes you feel like connected, you don't stop fighting. Just 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 feel the feeling. And as you
Right.
feel the feeling, it will fade on its own. You don't even have to force it. But
Hmm.
we're so trained to try to force it to work. I'm gonna go. Now I'm not again. I think you should go to, I think counseling is very, 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 very good. But if you
Right.
go into counseling thinking that that counselor is going to be able to get that person to do what that person don't want to do, and even
Right.
if that counselor is able to get that person to do what they don't want to do, it's
It ain't
only
gonna
going to
stick.
last for a season,
Ain't gonna
right?
stick.
It's not
Right.
going to stick, right? The
Right.
only thing a counselor really can do is help two people, right, connect back to themselves so that they connect with each other,
And they
right?
can communicate.
And they
Yeah.
can communicate. They can
Mm.
communicate the connection, because sometimes when you get married, because the rules and regulations of what marriage is supposed to be takes over, you stop
Mm.
connecting with your significant other, or your husband or your wife. You stop connecting because you start to try to just abide by the label. Well, I'm the
Right.
wife, and as the wife, I'm supposed to do this and I'm supposed to do that. This is what wives are for, right?
Right.
And I think that
Yeah.
we play those roles very well until those roles don't fit us, and then all of a sudden you
Right.
look in the mirror and you say, "Who am I?
Ooh,
Where
that's a
where
deep one.
where have I gone to?"
Right. Right.
Right?
Yeah. And I found myself in that same predicament because it's like you said, it's one of those things where you can make it. You can do the necessary steps. You can have the necessary conversations. But just because you can and you can last through it doesn't mean you should. Because sometimes it takes a bigger toll on you really connecting with your genuine self to be able to connect to communicate what you're feeling to your significant other. And the reason why it's so hard to communicate what you're feeling to your significant other is because you pushed it so far down, and now it's got
Mm.
all this residue on top of it. And then that turns
Ooh.
into resentment. And then the conversations won't even come out the way you want them to come out. And they come across as a shock to the other person when you've been pushing it for a very long time.
It
Because
all
you can fix it.
you can fix it. You can fix it, or you can force it, or you can
Right.
make it work. And
Yeah,
all of
we can
those
make this
terms
work.
we
We can make
use.
this work.
Hey,
Yeah, all
I'm gonna
those
make this
terms.
work. We
Yeah,
use those terms and they sound innocently appropriate,
right,
but they're very damaging to
right,
relationships, in my opinion. I
right.
think
I
when you
agree.
start to say, I'm gonna make this relationship work, I'm gonna do these things, I think that it's very, 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 very damaging, right? I think it
Yeah,
actually, because I think what happens is that it puts us on a loop right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
To constantly show up in a way where we're going to have to force,
And
right?
please other people.
And exactly, and that means that
Yeah.
if I'm pleasing somebody else, that means who's not getting pleased? Me. And then I
Yeah.
gotta but because I think it's relationships are hard, now I'm on a cycle of
Right.
constantly being in a position where I have to be rejected or reject myself to please
Right.
somebody else. Because why? Because relationships are hard. I got to do this because I got to make the relationship work. And before you're knowing it, you're just doing it, you're just going and going and going. And by
Hmm.
the time you realize how dizzy you are from going in a circle of creating this hardness in your relationship, now your
Right.
heart has become hard, or as you just said,
Right.
you develop resentment,
Yeah.
right? And I
Hmm.
think that you don't, if you would just allow, I always ask people this question: what do you want? Would you prefer a great relationship, or would you prefer, quote unquote, a traditional marriage? Which one would you want? You
Right.
want a great
Right.
relationship or you want a marriage, right?
Right.
Or,
Right.
if you want a great relationship, then the best way to have a great relationship is in the relationship.
Right. Right. Yeah. I also think that it really we need to redefine like you said, what a great relationship is, because you need to make sure that that great relationship is really not the definition of a relationship that someone else told you.
It's got to be connected to a feeling that's connected
Right.
to you,
Yeah.
right? And you
Absolutely.
may not, and it may not fit the complete pattern of somebody else's, and it
Right.
shouldn't. It can have
Right.
resemblance, right? It
Right.
can have some of the same pattern streaks, right? But there
Right.
should be something creatively unique to your
Right.
relationship.
Right. Exactly. And that also is something that we tend to compromise. It's because we get this idea in our heads and then it doesn't fit that. We're like, oh, well, I mean, I can't have everything anyway. But if it's a high on your list, then maybe you need to reevaluate who you're with, who you're spending that time with. Because, like you said, like attracts like. So if you're not spending time really focusing on what you like, instead you're worrying about things that in the long run doesn't matter as much, like someone being, you know, 24, what is it, 36, 24, 36. You're more worried about that when them numbers going to invert themselves after time, and that apple going to turn into like a diamond, literally a diamond, you know? And then those things fade away, but then are you having good conversations?
Are you
Are
having
you still
what's
connected?
important?
Are you
Exactly.
still going places that you want to go? Are you still laying in the grass at the park? Are you still going to museums? Do you go to the gun show and go to the shooting range? Like
But
these
but but
things,
but we're married now. We don't do those
right?
things anymore.
Right.
That's not
Yeah.
what married people do.
Right.
You can't I can't
That's
have
sad.
that expectation.
Right.
Things change. And see, all of
Right.
those things sounds innocently true, but
Right.
they are harmful to
Yes.
your mental psyche and to your
Mm-hmm.
emotional psyche and to how
Right.
you show up in your relationships. They
Right.
all are very, very
Uh-huh.
damaging. And I think
Uh-huh.
that's why we have this we reproduce damaging relationships, which then is
Yeah.
why marriage, you got to people get a lot of marriages, and then you got
Yeah.
what? You got a lot of divorces. Why? Because you're reproducing this
Yeah.
mindset about relationships
Yeah.
that just doesn't really work,
Yeah.
right?
And
It
it's yeah.
doesn't work because you
Yeah.
can't force it. It's a connection,
Yeah. And
and
I
you
think
have to be
that is
willing to
why.
flow with it.
Yes. Yes, you do. And I think that's why a lot of people suffer from codependency, because we are dependent on the definition before we even meet the person.
Okay, now see, you just said that. See this, yeah. But you are depending upon the
Yep.
definition
Yeah.
before you even meet the
Before you
person.
even meet the person.
So what have you just done? You've just disregarded yourself in your own relationships.
Yeah.
And I kid you not,
Yeah.
I think we have all done it, but I think we all do it to a certain extent. And then we wonder why a lot of us, not all of us, a lot of us are frustrated in our relationships. Well,
Yeah.
you showed up to your relationship willing to disregard yourself. You showed
Right.
up to your relationship willing
Yeah.
to
Mm.
not to be true to your own self.
Woo! And now you are like attracting like. Because you disregard, now you pissed off because who you with is disregarding you. When you
What else could you expect? What else could you expect?
look, I hope Anthony Williams right listening right now. We just broke bread. Okay? We just broke bread. Wow. How insightful. Like really, like that is so crazy. It's like 360 like where we start. Are we making relationship harder than they have to be? Yes.
Yes.
Before we ever even get into one.
Before we ever even, because think about it. Well, we're not saying, you know, I'm I'm in a great relationship. I'm gonna have a great relationship. We're gonna flow. We're gonna connect. We're gonna engage. We're gonna have an emotional connection, a physical connection, a sexual connection. We're gonna have all of these things. No, we go in there. Relationships are gonna be hard, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm not gonna be able to get everything that I want. I'm gonna have to
Right.
compromise, and I'm gonna compromise because we gotta last forever. I gotta stay committed to the commitment. Committed to the commitment is the most important thing. Okay, now you've
Wow. On the
already
loop.
lost. You're on the loop. You've already lost before you even got in the game.
Whew.
You've already created pain for yourself before
That's
you even
deep.
connected with someone,
That's
right?
deep.
Because the only reason why that relationship, the next relationship you're going to get in is going to be all those things is because you fed it. You
Yeah.
put it in you created, you put it in your field how
Mm-hmm.
difficult it was going to be before you even met the person,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so
Yeah.
when you met the person, you met a person who's going to be who's going to make it difficult in his or her next relationship,
Right.
right? And it's just
Yeah.
and it's a continuous. We continue to do it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And I just say
Yeah.
it's time to
Yeah.
it's time to make some it's time to start creating relationships that we actually want to be in. Nobody wants a relationship to be hard. Hard means that's work, and work is like going on a job. A relationship
Right.
shouldn't be a job,
Right.
right? It's
Yeah.
it's only it only becomes a job because you decided before you got into the relationship that there was a certain point that fun was going to turn off.
Yeah.
And you made
Yeah.
that agreement before you ever said I do. You made
Uh-huh.
that agreement before you
For
ever fell in
better
love
or
or
worse.
worse.
And
Like
we
we said in
all
our vows.
and we go to that now but you said for better or worse. You got me. And that's usually why we usually stay. You know what? You got me. I
Committed to the
just did that.
commitment. Committed to let me tell you something. Committed to the commitment is the most beautiful statement. That sounds so beautiful. I'm committed to the commitment. But when you
Which
actually
is
unpeel what that means, right?
mm-hmm.
Now, if you're committed to the commitment and your main purpose of getting married or whatever your union was to have a commitment and that was your main reason, then committed to the commitment is perfect.
Yeah.
But if you married for love,
Uh,
then committed to the commitment and love ain't the same thing. Because somebody can be
commitment.
committed.
Yeah. Commitment to the commitment is like taking the shackles off and realizing it ain't even no door to walk out of. Like, come on. Like, you can't be committed to a commitment because a commitment itself is dead. You know what I mean? Commitments themselves, the word is dead. It is dead.
Ooh, see,
You
let's
know?
explore. Let's explore that. See, I have a theory about that too, right? Which is the definition of when we think about marriage. When we think about marriage. I think we are actually it's the depth of the relationship,
Mm,
right? For a lot of people, marriage becomes the depth of the relationship.
right.
Marriage is where the connection goes to die.
Mm,
Marriage is where the
goodness.
happiness goes to die, right?
Yeah.
Because what usually happens is that a woman or man will show up however she feels like she needs to show up to get the man to get engaged, or the
Right.
man to show up to get the woman to get engaged, right?
Right.
And then once they feel like, okay, now I got you to marry me, right? Where does the relationship go?
Right.
Right? Because
Right.
all of your effort went to get them to do certain things. Think about, have you ever had a friend who was dating a guy or a girl or whatever, and they had a you actually thought they had a pretty good relationship, right? And then a year passed, and now all of a sudden her conversation, well, we've been together a year. It's time for him to put a ring on it, right? And now all of a sudden, the every conversation you ever have with her is about him putting a ring on it. And you're
Mm-hmm.
thinking to yourself, okay, you no longer want to have a good relationship. It seems like you had a good relationship, but now it's all about marriage. So then they
Right.
spend the next 6 months to 8 months figuring out how to get him to put a ring on it. Then he finally does, she finally convinces him to put a ring on it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
then what does he got to do? He got to propose to her in a way that the world will know that he's proclaiming his love for her. Right?
When you put it into words, this is like it's almost so silly, and it's y'all. And I know there's people out there that be like, y'all crazy. That's romantic, and I don't. Y'all can say what y'all want to say, but that's what I want for me, and that is fine.
Yeah,
That
and
is
I'm not saying that
absolutely
it's not
fine.
romantic.
Like
I'm not even saying that
we
it's
are
not
not
romantic.
trying to change anyone's opinion.
Yeah,
But if you are doing that because you think that's the way, put it this way. Let's see how many people, and I must just say this, and if you, for just a split second, felt uncomfortable, put a one in the comment. If you didn't feel uncomfortable, put a two. What? Why keep the girl proposed? What is
girl
the
can
problem?
propose.
Why? Why they always waiting for somebody to put a ring on it? Why don't they go
Exactly.
buy a ring
Exactly. If
and be
it
like,
see, this is the thing.
let's get married?
Think about this. Think about this. If you feel like you and this guy or whatever got a connection, and let's say for y'all, marriage is that next step for y'all, right? Why do you have to wait for him to propose to you,
I don't
right?
get it.
Only because that's tradition. That's it.
Right.
And for some women, well, I'm not about to propose to no man.
Trinae, Trinae said, I ain't gonna do that.
Trey said she's not gonna do that.
You might
But you
want
know,
to hang it up.
and you know what? And you don't have to.
Right.
But if you wanted to, nothing would be wrong with that either. Because this is the thing. What let's take the woman that was ballsy enough, right, to
Mm,
propose to her man, right? And
right.
let's say her man really wanted to propose to her too. She just beat him to the punch. And let's say they got married and they had this relationship that they had a live feed check-in. They in real time they connected with each other and they pivoted and shifted when they needed to. So they got a great relationship. Does it really matter that she proposed if 10 years later they're actually happy in their relationship? Do
Come
you
on.
really care how beautiful the
Right.
proposal was and how many people saw and how big the ring and whether he was the one that did it or she did it? If 10
Mm,
years from now they're not just in a marriage just to say they're married, but they are happily together,
right. Right.
then does it really matter that the formalities of how you were trained it was supposed to be wasn't met? See, you
Right.
got this is what I'm talking about. What is it
Right.
that you really want? Right? Right? Do you want the
Mm,
formalities? Then wait for the formalities. It's okay. There's no problem
right.
with that. Right? But for some people, they don't actually want the formalities. They want what's true for them.
Right. She says,
Hmm.
adjust yourself, wake up, be good with having to change. Don't go back that way again. Slow down and analyze your real life. The marriage is the beginning of a great relationship, commitment, joy, fun, and even the ups and downs. Be real, stop the nonsense of the ideal of marriage. Let's love one another. Absolutely. When you make
Absolutely.
it about love, because love is something that is mature. And in order for something to be mature, it has to change.
It has to
Let
it
that
has to
sink in.
change. It has to
Has to,
change. It has
that,
to adjust. And this is what I always tell people. Think about it. We are growing beings every day. We literally shed our bodies every day.
every day.
How do you think you get to be with somebody forever and not have to deal with changes?
Come on.
And sometimes the changes can be that the other person don't want you no more.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just that's a change,
Yeah.
right? It
Right.
could be a hurtful change, but a lot of times what I find it is not a hurtful change. A lot of times what it is a change that most people just didn't want to have to admit to, right? Because you saw it coming.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You saw it coming, you just didn't want to let go,
Right.
right? And we all we
Right.
all have we all have done it. We all have
Right.
held on.
Yeah.
But
We have.
you'll never get to the next vibrational connection
Mm-hmm.
if you're still trying to force a connection that's no longer
Right.
there.
Uh-huh. Like exactly what I said earlier. Just because you stay, it doesn't mean It doesn't change the fact that it could be time for you to go.
Staying past the
That's not what
expiration
that
date
does. Right.
doesn't preserve
And
it.
we definitely gonna have to talk about this again because I'm thinking about really the evolution of marriage and when did marriage become about love, because that is not the way it began.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't understand. I think, Missy, did I write it down? The marriage. See, we operate from this idea that marriage was always a thing. You do realize that the term marriage is a relatively new word,
Right.
right? It's a relatively new word. I think it's like maybe 15th, it's a 15th century word. Or
Mm.
I
Right.
just I be taking all kind of
You,
notes.
you know it. You know I got my notebook up here. I can
Yeah,
tell. You know.
I think it's a relatively new word. It's like a maybe a 15th century. I think it's like a 15th century word,
See if
maybe
I can.
15th or late early 16th century word. So we have to understand that we're operating off of a term that was a created term, and all of the characteristics about it was created, right? And then the idea
Right.
of love, right? Well, first of all, what is love, right? We can that could be a whole nother
Oh God,
show.
that's a whole nother
That's
thing.
a whole
That's
no,
that's
that's
what
a
I write
whole
my article about. Boom.
Oh, oh yeah, yeah. This you're gonna be the guest
Oh
blogger
yeah.
on the blog for February. I appreciate that. But yeah, we could talk. Love that's a whole nother thing, right? Then the idea of engagement ring, right? I did a podcast on that diamonds are not a girl's best friend, and the reason I did that was because I discovered that the idea of diamonds and love, that was all an ad campaign. There was no connection between diamonds and love, right?
Right.
And it's like, okay, but I never knew that because I wanted my emerald
Nah,
cut. I wanted that, right? You know what I'm saying?
right.
Not, and look, and just to discover that diamonds, the whole diamonds is love forever, and diamonds
Yeah.
is scarce and all of that stuff. All of that's
Right.
that's not even true. Diamonds are not scarce, and diamonds being loved forever is an ad campaign, right? And it's like that when I found that out, I was like, I just put my head down. I was like, the stuff that
They
we
got us with the okey
they
doke
got us with the okey
again.
doke. And then I'm sitting there thinking, I'm getting mad at somebody. It's like, well, you didn't give me an emerald cut 3 carat diamond, right? You're not showing me you love me. Our love isn't forever.
Mhm.
And I'm not realizing that basically what has become an absolute was somebody's
Yeah.
ad campaign. Do
Right.
you understand that? And then it makes you wonder, okay, the let's go back to what you said. Is the man proposing to the woman? Is that from an ad campaign?
Because
Right?
before it came from whoever had the biggest dowry, and it came from the parents normally, not even the people who were getting married.
Yeah,
So we have to make we have to create our own definitions of some of these words, because that is why some words have a negative connotation, is because we put a negative emotion on it. We put stress into it when it does not even belong there, like love, like marriage, like commitment, like
mm,
conversations, like agreements. And we take these things and we trust the definition that's handed down to us. But we don't realize that the definitions are handed down to us have a whole lot of negative emotions attached to it. And if we could just take the time to really brush off the nastiness that was on people's hands when they handed us stuff, and look at it for what it truly is, and know that we can attach whatever we want to attach to it, we can just change our entire world. And I can
exactly.
talk about marriage all I want, and I can see what it means to me and not see what it meant to you,
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
know?
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, it's about creating
It is.
unique relationships and not trying to replicate blueprints that don't fit
Woo!
you.
It is. Relationships is about co-creating, not
It's about
replicating. That is
it's about
powerful.
co-creating. That's what that's
Yeah.
a, that and when you start to connect with that, even a difficult or what you would have considered to be a difficult relationship
Mm.
begin to flow,
Woo! Come
right?
on.
And it flows because you're not trying to force out of the relationship what's not there to be given in the first place.
Right.
And you're flowing with what the relationship does give you. and
Right.
you're happy with it, and you're feeling full from what the relationship does give you, right?
Mm.
So I'm not going to focus on what the relationship doesn't give me. I'm going to be like, okay, you know what? This is not that relationship,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
What they say, they not ready.
They ain't ready. She said that propaganda. You better get that emerald. Yeah, it is those cultural norms that'll get you because like the propaganda ain't no joke. They are good at what they do.
Oh, they're very
And
good.
it doesn't just stop at propaganda. Our parents are good at what they do
But
because they
because
truly and wholly believe what they experience. They truly believe what they've witnessed. And when someone believes something, it is absolute for them until they have a reason to think otherwise. But it does not have to be absolute for you.
and think about this before we close.
Yes.
If it's your absolute, right? One of the things that I've been teaching myself on is learning about the brain. And one of the things I found out about the brain is that the brain doesn't make big leaps. The brain takes small steps. And the next step is always most, the next possible, right? Most possible step is the only step. And that next most possible step is bound by the assumptions that you live by. And those assumptions are based in the absolutes, right? So if you have assumptions in your life about certain things, then your next most possible step for
It's
you to take in
influence
your
about
life,
those things.
right, is going to be bound by the construct of your assumptions,
Come on.
right? Right. And
Right.
so a lot of times the reason why you're not co-creating great relationships is because within your space of possibility, you have assumptions about relationships that limit you from having a
Mm,
joyful, happy, sexually satisfying, emotionally
mm,
satisfying, communicative, connective, whatever, your assumptions, your absolutes, right? In your
yeah.
space of possibility, right? It limits the next possible step you can make,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
You see what I'm
Yes.
saying? So if in your assumptions or in your absolutes is their relationships are absolutely hard, then
Yeah.
guess what? Then the next possible step for you to have in a relationship is to have another hard relationship,
Another hard relationship.
right?
Yep.
But
Yeah.
change that
We get
assumption.
what we believe.
We
We
get
get
what
what
we
we believe.
believe,
Yeah.
right? We get
Mm,
what we believe. That's why brain training your brain is very, first of all, becoming aware of just how your brain functions is, I think it's everybody should read a book on the brain, right?
right.
I think Norman Deutsch got a book called The Brain That Changes Itself. That's a great book to read.
Mm,
David Engelman got a book called Live Wire. That's a great book to read. It's a lot of great brain books that you can read. Just understanding certain aspects of your brain really, really does help because it begin to help you realize that it really is inner you.
right.
It really is.
Right.
It's that inner part of you that's
Mm,
controlling your body. But this can
right.
be controlled, right?
Right.
Your brain conserves energy. So it's gonna always want to do that which takes the least amount of energy. And it takes
Right.
no energy for you to continue to believe that relationships are hard because you've
Right.
conditioned yourself to believe that.
It's easier.
It takes a lot of energy initially to rewire your brain to say, wait a minute, relationships don't have to be hard. If
Right.
relationships got to be hard, that means that I'm showing up hard. Well, I'm not going to show
Mm-hmm.
up into my relationships hard anymore.
Right.
So that way, if somebody else is showing up hard, we won't work anyway because
Right.
I'm not bossed to work in
Right.
this
Right.
relationship.
Right. I'm not
I'm
doing.
not bossed to work. I'm just not bossed to
Oh
do
my
it.
God. Yes. Yes. That's so good. Show up the way you want to be. Show up what you want reciprocated. Show up
Exactly.
expecting what makes you happy.
Exactly.
Show up expecting what makes you joyful and excited about. Looking at that person beside you in the bed every day. Like show up that way.
Yeah,
God,
show up that way.
namaste. This has been so good. This has
Well, it's
been
been
everybody
wonderful.
agree. Everybody good combo. This is good. Claps and all of that. Man, LaShawn, you never disappoint. You never disappoint. If I didn't have a hole in these shorts, I'd stand up right now.
You silly.
Yes, thank you so much. So,
Thank you for
everybody out
having
there,
me.
make sure you tag somebody that you know can use this. Relationships do not have to be hard. That is a definition that has been handed down to you from people who have decided that their relationships were going to be hard and there was no
Exactly.
way to get around having hard relationships, but rather spend time thinking about how you can co-create your
Co-create.
own unique experience in your relationship instead of duplicating the relationships that you've seen.
Ooh,
Because if we are all individual as our fingerprints, why wouldn't our relationships be? I mean, why wouldn't they be?
why wouldn't they be?
Why wouldn't they be? So
That's
thank you so much, Shauna. Any
thank
final
you.
words that you want to give before we slide out of here?
No, I am just so first of all, I'm just thankful to be here. I love your audience. I love being on this show.
Mm-hmm,
So I appreciate you having me. But I just
mm-hmm,
I want people to just really just think about what it is that I'm saying. You don't have to buy into everything that I'm saying. I don't expect you to. You're not me, right? But I am personally learning that I don't. I'm not gonna work at a relationship. I'm not. They're not. If they're gonna be hard, then we just not going to work, right? It's just
right,
this just how it just is how it is.
right.
And I'm finding that because I'm showing up that way, I'm finding joy in things that I normally wouldn't have even found joy in my relationships, right? And so I think that if you just start to change that initial assumption and
Mm-hmm,
start saying that you want to be in a relationship that flows
right,
and you flow with it and and if it lasts forever,
mm,
great, wonderful,
right.
awesome, right?
Yeah,
But
right.
if it doesn't, it's still great. It's
Yeah,
still
it was still
wonderful.
a
It's
good
still awesome,
relationship.
right?
Yeah.
Because the only reason that a great relationship to you isn't great is because you were too focused on having a particular outcome. But when you
Mm,
allow the journey to be the joy, then the
right,
outcome doesn't matter. And if the
right.
outcome comes where y'all have to
Mm, I'm
end
gonna
because
write that
maybe some
down.
things change, right? Then guess what? It's okay because you had so much fun on the journey of being in the relationship that when it was time for the relationship to end, it didn't really seem like an end, right? It
Just a
was just
trend, just a pivot,
it was just a pivot,
another
right? And
transition, another
and I think
change.
we got to learn to love the pivots in our lives.
Yes, because every period pivot is just another expansion of our awareness.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, and I
And you know I'm
definitely see
all
it.
about expansion. It's all
Yeah,
about expansion.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So thank you.
Thank you. That was so good. So everybody have an absolutely beautiful day and enjoy the way. She said if the journey, if you're focused more so on the joy of the journey, the outcome won't matter. That's good. That's good. So take that with you today and make sure that every step of the way you're enjoying your journey, not just with the relationship with other people, but with your relationship with yourself, because in that you'll realize all the things that you're looking for in relationships with everybody else, and then just flow with it. So
Right, just flow
we
with it.
love you. Take care of yourself. Be your own kind of beautiful.
I
And we'll
say
see you next week.
peace. I say
Bye.
priestess.
Ashe.